Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode. So today I feel very lucky. Today with me I have a guy that is a thought leader, public speaker, has been covering workforce management from a wide variety of forums over the last decades. And I'm super pleased to have Dan Smitley joining the podcast today. So today we cover a glimpse into the future. So what really makes or breaks the future of WFM? What are the things that we should focus on and the things to master? It's going to be a super exciting conversation. Let's go. Welcome to another episode. Dan Smitley with me. I think everyone was asking for your name. A few of our previous guests recommended me to speak with you,
Appreciate
and here
that.
you are. Dan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Glad we are able to connect and love the content you guys are putting out. So it's an honor to join you.
So let's go straight to one of the questions we have been asking every single guest,
Yeah.
which is to define in your own words what workforce management means to you.
Yeah. So for me, there's a classic answer of workforce management and then kind of where my personal definition of so the classic one, right, is it is about understanding the resources that you need and making sure that they are in place to meet customer needs, right? The right people with the right skills, the right time handling, the right interactions. I think that's a fairly classic answer. For me, workforce management is really about balancing the employee experience, the customer experience, and the business outcomes, right? Workforce management sits at the center of every organization and says, how can I improve the work-life balance for my employees? How can I increase the customer satisfaction for my clients? And how can I, through productivity and efficiency for my organization? Management is this fantastic middle team that helps honestly every organization become a more like strategic and goals oriented company.
Perfect definition. And then for everyone that already listened to the intro, so the idea today is to speak about like a future look to the industry. Where are we actually going? Like there is
Yeah.
so many different things happening nowadays. Uh, and we could go from a spectrum from all the AI transformation to all the new evolution of like
Yep.
digital channels, etc., etc. But before we go there,
Mhm.
so where do you think our industry is today? Like from a maturity
where
standpoint?
where our industry is
Yeah.
today. Yeah. So where the industry is today, it varies, right? So I don't know about you, but I'm interacting with a lot of different organizations that go all the way from we're still in spreadsheets to what's workforce management and why do I need it? All the way into we are automating processes, our scheduling, our forecasting is actually already being done by the bots. And my team has
Mhm.
been reduced down to a couple people that are focusing on something completely different. Our industry is incredibly fragmented, right? Like it's all over the place. I do see some that is starting to leverage bots in both the contact center and also inside of their workforce management practices. But I think there's a great opportunity to be able to pull up some of these other WFM teams out of spreadsheets and into more sophisticated
Mhm.
tools, or even honestly just introducing workforce management into an environment. The maturity rate is honestly all over the place, depending upon sector, depending upon region, depending upon just desire.
Yeah, I like the way you brought the different sectors because in a previous conversation we spoke about the lack of a standard for WFM, meaning
Mm-hmm.
that across multiple industries, for instance, let's use a broader in arms like logistics.
Mm-hmm.
Logistics planning is already standardized in a sense of like the
Yep.
problems are well known. There is a business industry standard expectation. When we look at WFM more specifically, and I think you made a good point that different sectors, different like within the business itself, they have different perceptions of maturity, and
Yes.
that brings that lack of a sense of a standard. Like the standard is many times defined by the experience of the professional knowing what works, what doesn't work, and trying to do their best
Yep.
for the company more than the industry paving like the standard.
Exactly.
how,
Exactly.
how
Which
yeah,
makes then the conversation around the future of our environment that much more challenging, right? Because
Yeah.
the future then means something very different to every person. I've had plenty of conversations with WFM professionals about the future, and I've gotten feedback from people being like, oh, I thought this would be more futuristic. He's already talking about stuff that we're doing. And I'm like, cool, you're doing it. But the three people over, this is groundbreaking for them, right? Like
Yeah.
this is crazy talk. So the future of contact centers and the future of workforce management is so personalized to the department, to the sector, that it's challenging, because what we might be talking about is what someone's already doing today, maybe what they can do 3 months from now, and maybe they can't even touch it for the next 5 years because their organization is so far behind.
Yeah. And so that's a good point. So I have been in conversations with different folks as well from within WFM, especially on the vendor side, on the consulting
Mhm.
side. One thing that is very common, which you touched upon, is it's hard to predict for multiple reasons where we are going to be in the next
Yep.
3 or 5 years, because
Yep.
like you said, the challenges of today for a group of people might be completely different from the others, and it's hard to bridge that link. But
Yep.
anyway, do you think there are any commonalities, meaning that is it possible to expand at the same rate, benefiting everyone at the same time? Like, is that possible?
I think so. So I think the answer is yes. And I think what you should be focusing on, kind of regardless of sector, regardless of where you're at from a technology perspective, is on the soft skills, right?
Mhm.
From my perspective, workforce management in the past has been the nerds in the corner that love spreadsheets, right? You feed them some pieces of pizza, they give you your forecast, and they go back to their corner. I was that person, right? So I'm not talking out of turn. I love spreadsheets. I'm that guy as well. And I think what's being required of workforce management professionals, regardless of where you're at from a technology maturity perspective, is our job is shifting from simply being really good with forecasting, really good with numbers, and starting to shift to being really good with people, right? We are becoming this central team that is having to influence and impact so many other key stakeholders, that are having to
Mhm.
think about the work-life balance of our employees, that are having to think about the customer experience, that these soft skills around curiosity, around empathy, around kindness, around
Mhm.
collaboration, around strong communication skills, kind of regardless of where you're at from a technology perspective, these are the paths forward, right? So I kind of joke, I've given presentations around technology, and my jumping off point is the bots are taking all of our jobs, but what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
And my perspective is what we need to do about it then is focusing in on those soft skills where we can kind of keep ourselves as valuable even as technology continues to mature. It's going to be on I'm incredibly strong and curious. And so I know how to put the prompts into the bots, right? I know how to communicate with empathy to my coworkers that helps them understand why we need to go in the direction that the bots think that we need to go. So yeah,
Mhm.
kind of regardless of sector maturity, I'm thinking these soft skills around curiosity, communication, collaboration, empathy, kindness are the things that every WFM professional should be upskilling and focusing on, because those
Mhm.
are what's going to make them successful in the future.
it, it's perfect. And if I to summarize it and to
Yeah.
open for my next question, I think there are definitely two focal points. On the people itself, it's the soft skills, like you mentioned, the
Hmm.
empathy, the curiosity. I think those are very vivid, and
Sure.
I think it's clear for most leaders in the industry that this is the path to go. You
Hmm.
need to be more on the decision making table, and the only way there is through that path. It's like you need to be closing that gap as
Yeah.
soon as possible. At the same time, we you also mentioned about bots, about AI, about
Yep.
the digital transformation that is pushing the way we forecast, the way we
Sure.
schedule, the way we even
Yep.
plan to completely different boundaries. So there are
Yes.
the two main pillars, I would say,
Hmm.
to simplify a lot, the two
Yeah.
main
Yeah. You're
pillars.
absolutely spot on.
What do you foresee the next? So I think on the people side, human side, it's clear those skills to work on.
Sure.
What do you foresee on the technological side? Like, what do you foresee that will be the next steps in our industry?
Yeah. So again, next steps is kind of a hard one because different technology platforms. But where
True.
I see it working, I'll say this: what I think is coming that I haven't heard anyone talking about yet. I see contact centers, because that's the space I play in. Contact centers starting to leverage personalized data of the individual to customize their experience as they go through the channels. right? I personally would absolutely say yes, you can have access to my Facebook account and my Amazon account and whatever ever ones. If that means I don't have to say representative, representative, representative 3 times in the IVR just to get to someone, right? And if I can
Mhm.
just give you my personal information and that routes me to the best individual that will then be able to handle my
Mhm.
interaction with empathy, with kindness, and with personalization of like, hey, how was that trip you just went on? Might be a little creepy at first. I get that, right? But I think it's the big data personalization where people are just giving it out constantly to make
Mhm.
my experience easier as the consumer. So I see IVRs not going away, right? Not being replaced with, well, to some extent being supplemented by AI, but it's the tapping in of personal data that's, I think, going to change a lot of that contact center space.
Mhm.
Workforce management, I see it where you're not having to normalize. A lot of platforms right now, you're normalizing because it doesn't understand big events, right? It doesn't understand there was a hurricane. I'm in the east coast of the States, so hurricanes are part of my environment.
Yeah.
The platform doesn't understand it took down Florida, which is where all of your cruise ships go out of, and that's where most of your agents live. And so everything looks different. So you have to normalize the volume for it to understand, not to forecast this out in the future.
Yeah.
Why isn't the platform just tied into weather patterns? It's available online. It should know. Like it should
Mhm.
see this is happening. What are the big things that are happening in the news? What are the big things that are happening in the weather? I'm going to normalize for you. And sure, there might still be human interaction to say, yes, you understood that correctly. Check, 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 check. But I shouldn't have to tell you this is Black Friday. It changes,
Yes.
sure, but it's Black Friday. And that's the reason why this is just a huge volume day. The internet should tell you that it's Black Friday. Your forecast should automatically increase because it's Black Friday. Why am I having to both put in the holiday factor to inform the forecast and then normalize it on the back end? So I think technology just leveraging the knowledge that's already out there,
Mhm.
and it simplifies our role as forecasters, as schedulers, a whole lot easier because we're still necessary, but it's a whole lot less getting in there, making the adjustments, and really just approving, yes, bot, you understood this correctly.
If you allow me the
Mhm.
comparison, I think what you said is a lot of the data entry that most likely is going away because bots can do data entry much
Oh,
better
for
than
sure.
probably humans. Because there is one you said that I already crossed that path once, but I see a lot of people that need to go through that path, which is about forecasting when you have events, promotional activities, marketing, regardless
Yes.
of the sector, whatever it is,
Right.
or weather events, like you just said.
Yeah.
That information, why don't we just feed that information in a way that then the machine can run and compare it and adjust, instead of we need to go back in
Yep.
every single previous event and say this was Black Friday, like you said, this was
Exactly.
I did a promotion for new customers,
Yep.
whatever it is, and this drove X volume. Why don't I just feed, like the same way I feed calls in, the same way I feed emails, I feed different channels. I just want to feed marketing events. I just want to feed weather events, and then having the systems feeding that in and allowing that comparison. I think it's super
Exactly.
spot on, and I think that I, to be fair, I never saw anyone actually
Right.
reversing that yet,
Yeah.
but I think it's a good
And
next
think
step.
about it, right? It continues to allow WFM to be important because
Hmm.
what in theory should be happening, then we're getting this feed from the marketing team, right? Instead of them just telling us about it, we are getting access to whatever platform they're using to create their promotions, to create their marketing. It knows how many emails are going out, what platforms, it's consuming it all. And then we're able to report back to the marketing team. This is the success rate. This is the volume that you're driving because of your emails, because of your social campaigns, because of whatever. Our environment is consuming it, digesting it, and then able to produce back to the marketing team. This is the success. So I
Hmm.
think right now that's such a manual process for workforce management that it's challenging for us to give those results and to add value into that environment. But if it's coming through automation, it's going to be incredibly easy to add value into marketing, into HR, into IT, wherever we have the ability to say,
Hmm.
what you're doing is impacting our environment, and here's the results. And that just continues to allow WFM to be critical throughout the organization.
Yeah, and that ties well. Like we have been speaking a lot about the future, uh,
Mhm.
but to continue to evolve, and I'm more specific about the industry, and we have been seeing the revolution or the evolution, the way AI is transforming even
Mhm.
simple things on our day to day, and
Yep.
more things will for sure come.
Yeah,
There is one that is very popular nowadays, which is about the virtual assistant, which is like not necessarily within WFM, but that is empowering humans to do what they can do better. And
absolutely.
I'm a fan of AI enhancing the performance of the individuals. And I think it's the same with WFM based on what you were saying, which is we are enhancing our ability to then
Yes.
go back to the soft skills and
Yep.
be able to actually connect and
Yep.
create empathy with the different teams in a way that today it's really hard. Today we many times, oh, there's a promotion, no one got informed, but like, okay, if I informed you, what do I get in return? And this kind of relationship, it's I think it's going to be interesting to see the evolution
Absolutely.
from
Absolutely.
both ends. So let's touch a bit on AI. So AI is transforming almost everything. Not only I would say not only the service or the WFM, but we have been seeing it popping out in every single sector. Every single company is adopting projects that are now
Yep.
going through Chat GPT or some other form. I mentioned the
Mhm.
virtual agent as well. How do you see AI specifically within workforce management? Like, and what kind of landscape can you imagine in the next years?
Yeah. So one example that I personally have been using that I think can help, again, going back to those soft skills, right? Um, it helps in a way that just says, can you clarify this communication, right? Like you can be a really poor communicator. Again, thinking about the nerds that love spreadsheets, they're in the corner, they don't know how to relay the importance of why shrinkage matters, why HT matters. I've already had some peers of mine saying those conversations are hard for me. And so I put it into AI and it spits out my email for me, right? It says, I need to relay X, Y, and Z right for me. So I think AI can complement and can supplement some of those soft skills that we think are so important that will then allow WFM to continue to be influential. I think that's one way that I wasn't thinking about even just 2 weeks ago, and all of a sudden now, just literally yesterday, I was like, hey Bard, because I'm using Bard right now on the Google side, like
Yeah.
what's the tone that I'm setting here? Because I want it to be direct, but I don't want it to be aggressive. Do I have the right tone in my email? And it's like, no, you need to soften your skills. Here's some suggestions. So that's how can AI help the workforce management team? I see it helping inside of just, those environments. I think it could also be helping with storytelling. Again, thinking about it from a communication standpoint, because at least in my mind, so much of AI is this chat GPT, Bard, um,
Mhm.
it's text-based communication. A lot of us aren't very good at storytelling. We see the numbers. We want to relay to our teams why it's important that they stick to their schedule adherence, something other than because I told you it's important. And I think that's where AI can kind of those communications to say, because it's important to you and your goals, this is why. So right now, at least that's where my mind is at with like AI inside of the workforce management team. That's what I'm thinking. It is a value add to most of you today, not even right now. We can be benefiting from it.
I think you gave just two picture perfect examples of how we could use it. I personally use it for similar purposes, like uh, the example I wrote very recently a blog article about it, where one of the good examples is, let's say you are preparing a presentation and you want to tell that story, and
Mm-hmm.
you can ask AI, hey, this is the meeting, this is where I want to deliver, please help me
Yep.
with the narrative that fits like in 5 or 6 slides or 4 slides, give me like a structure for me to then work on. And I think it's a perfect example, helping you to tell a better story. It's
Yep.
something that definitely you can leverage AI, because I agree with you, storytelling, it's an art skill to master.
Exactly.
And if you
Exactly.
can enhance your skills with AI, why not take advantage of the
Exactly.
technology?
Yep. Yep.
Speaking on technology, so mm, let's go back a few steps. So
Mm-hmm.
we spoke about AI. We have been speaking about the future and trends, and I think you made already very good examples of what we can expect in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Technology impacted a lot WFM specifically, and I still remember when most of the technology was designed with the contact center being a phone
Yeah.
channel first.
Right.
It changed a lot over the
Yep.
last years, and I think there are definitely new developments coming. And I personally think that email is going to be going away to
Mm.
to soon. I think it's going to
Sure.
be just our mailbox where we receive confirmation emails. That's it. But I
Yeah.
don't. But no one really knows what's to come and what to expect in the near future. But
Mhm.
specifically on the technology, and before we go back to the future, and just kind of remind about the movie. Sorry about
Exactly. That's why I was like,
that.
was that on purpose?
Not on purpose, but let's go back in a second. So my point is, how do you think that impact that technology is having on the BLFM is helping the industry to evolve, or is still something that we are still struggling to adapt and to just accept that the landscape is changing?
Yeah. So the question being, how have the technology changes impacted
Yeah.
the environment? Again, I think it kind of goes back to the start of our conversation. It varies, right? It's a bit all over the place. There are some teams that have already fully adopted it and have embraced every element that they can of technology. And I also have hard conversations explaining to people why Erlang C inside of your spreadsheet isn't the way for you to run a multi-thousand seat call center, right? Like you need to move, or why chat and SMS and social platforms operate differently than voice. And
Mhm.
it's everywhere and it's all over the place. Some of my peers have been writing algorithms for how to handle these multi-channel environments from the practitioner side, not even from the vendor side. They're creating it on their own in
Mhm.
the, in the contact center. And again, other peers of mine refused to leave Excel because it's worked so well for them. So I think,
Yeah.
unfortunately, this is another one of those examples of like, how has it been adopted and how has it had an impact? It's all over the place, and I can't give a single answer because I think every environment I look at looks a little bit different.
And it goes back to the lack of that standard. It's like
Yes,
how
exactly.
can how can such a niche
Hmm.
industry, because I think WFM is very specific.
Yeah.
The it's not as massive as other industries, and still
Right.
we lack that standard. We lack that baseline that is common across all parts. I mean, the WFM cycle is very clear. I think everyone understands the full cycle, but the truth is, apart from that,
Hmm.
almost everything it's like. It's just different according to so many factors that makes it like almost unique to every single
Yeah.
setup.
I almost, and this is probably not a metaphor that works, but it almost feels like it's like travel in the sense of like everyone's agreed that getting from point A to point B is a good idea. Everyone agrees that getting to point A to point B efficiently and quickly is a good idea. But some people think running is the best way to get there quickly because they're comfortable running, and other people are like, well, clearly a bicycle is faster. Why wouldn't you use a bicycle? And other people are like cars or trains, or everyone has a different we agree we need to move, we agree we need to do it efficiently, but some people are like, I don't trust planes. Why would I get into a plane? That sounds scary. I'm going to trust my little two-wheeled bicycle to get me to where I need to go. And I think that's where we're at in workforce management is everyone agrees where we need to go, but everyone disagrees on what's the most
The
efficient,
method, yeah.
practical, and easy way to do it.
Yeah, good point. So let's go back to the professionals. We spoke about empathy and about the soft skills. Definitely something that I totally agree with you that it's something that requires working. What other challenges do you see that the professionals within workforce management today are facing, and how can we
Mhm.
address those challenges?
So other than the soft skills, I think another challenge that we're facing is just buy-in. Who are you? What do you do? And why is it important? I mean, I might be the only one that struggled with this, but I've definitely been in environments to where like workforce management, you mean your HR? Workforce management, so
Yeah.
you're counting boxes. What do you do? I don't understand. And so it is, I think, again, going back to we get what we're doing as WFM professionals. And I think there's some environments like contact centers that just get it. But when we start talking about back office, when we start talking about, um, you know, uh, warehouse logistics, workforce management, I think it can be challenging for some people. So one thing that I think that we're still struggling with outside of just soft skills is the ability to explain and get other people to buy in why we are important and why we are helpful to them. Again, not everyone. I get that everyone's kind of in a different place, but I know I've personally experienced that struggle even within the past year, 18 months of trying to explain to people why workforce management makes a difference in their environment.
Yeah, I agree with you. One of the good examples I have as a reference is I was very lucky throughout my career, and there was like an executive I met that once told me that before hiring anyone to WFM, he tried himself to do it and he failed,
Mm,
and that's when he realized, okay, this is a specific skill set that is
mhm,
required, so let's invest in trying to find someone that actually has it, or someone
mhm.
that knows it, because we don't know exactly what we are doing, so we are guessing, not
Right,
nailing it.
right.
And I think that summarizes kind of like that, what you just said. It's, I agree with you, we need to do a better job on picturing as like, why do
Mhm.
we exist,
Yeah.
why do I care that you are important. And one of the analogies I often hear on people that struggle with this is about, back to the airplanes, is about
Mhm,
like control tower. Like, you want to
mhm,
make sure that you land safely, you want to make sure
mhm.
that you depart on time, and if you leave to every single pilot, every single one, to make their calls and make the decisions
Yeah.
based on wherever their time is, accidents will happen, and no one really wants that to happen. So that's why planning is important. That's why
Yes.
the agents that are on the airports trying to make sure that the planes land and
Yep.
departure on time. And this is the best way I always found to describe, because it's very visual, very like people
Yes.
connect back to traveling.
Yep.
But still, I think the story, there are many folks that are understand the details, the technicalities, and then they, oh, why don't you understand? Because you need to forecast, and then you need to do this and
Right.
that, and it's like, this is why. And I was like, okay, but that doesn't answer the from a business perspective. Even if you want to do a sales pitch, that's not your elevator pitch for sure. That will not that will
Ab-
not make you move upward.
Absolutely. And I think it, to take that a little bit further, it's not just communicating why we're important. It's communicating how we can help you.
Mhm.
I've experienced at least stakeholders in other environments that are like, workforce management's fantastic for them over there. Don't touch my environment, right? They need your help because they're just chaos over there. They need someone coming in, organizing their forecast, their schedule. Don't touch my stuff. And I know some of the struggle that other professionals have had is getting into that profession, get to that team to say, but we can help. Because I think our first
Mhm.
approach a lot of times, unfortunately, is to come in to say, we know what's best. We're workforce management. We know how to forecast. We know how to schedule. We'll fix your environment. And that stakeholder is going to be offended. They're going to be
Yeah,
like, don't come in
very
and tell me
defensive.
my environment is messed up. So it, part of what I think workforce management can be doing and focusing on is how to adopt other departments' goals as their own, right? Instead of coming in saying, we know it's best, come in to say, how can we help? Where are you going? What is it that you're wanting to accomplish? Cool. I can't help with 5 of your things, but
Mhm.
those 2 sounds like I could help if I gave you a little bit better shrinkage forecast, if I helped along with, aligning your schedules and better schedule adherence. So I think there's a piece of that of, how do we come into an environment, not just sell ourselves, but to how to support
Mhm.
and embrace other people's goals.
Yeah, and I think that's the definitely the art part, and the examples of other areas of the business approaching them for the expertise and saying, "Hey, you made a good job here. Is there a way that you can help me?" And
Oh,
that
that's
opens the
fantastic.
doors, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But when that's not happening, I think it's, you also need to go back to your perfect point.
Yeah.
Let me shift gears a bit. So
Sure.
you
Sure.
are you have been public speaking in multiple different events
Hmm.
across the years, and I was trying to research before our conversation, and one of the subjects you covered before was about remote working. I wanted to get your points here on how much did that change, or, because there are two ways
Hmm.
of thought. Like, one is
Okay.
that it changed a lot and it
Yeah.
created like opportunities. The other way is like, in practical terms, change nothing. It's just the
Mhm.
variables are different, but it's the same process, the same thing. It's just like it
Mhm.
impacts like on at the people side, but not necessarily on the process side.
Mhm.
I wanted to
Mm.
pick your brains on that. Like, what do you think?
How
Yeah.
does it impact WFM? It impacts it dramatically, positive and negatively, right? So, a great positive impact is, as a workforce management team that is supporting and scheduling and forecasting for remote workers, your schedule options just opened up dramatically. Assuming you're not a union shop that has substantial, right, like limitations and
Yeah.
regulations around it. But if people are working from home, split shifts make a whole lot more sense, right? No one loved a split shift when they were commuting into the office 30 to 60 minutes, working a little bit, going home, coming back. Didn't work. a split shift for, a parent that can work from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., get their kids off to school, and then come back to work and work, from noon to wherever, makes a lot of sense for their work-life balance. It also helps you because everyone has that horrible kind of like bell curve of overlapping the day shift with the night shift, and there's substantial overage over in the middle of the day. Split shift makes sense. Micro shifts make sense. Varying start times and start lengths, and you can do pyramid schemes and waterfall schedules, and there's just so many options because people are only walking from their bedroom into their office. The commute makes it easy. Their ability to stop and take care of something else makes it easy. So from a pro perspective, workforce management over remote agents, amazing. Where it can be challenging, and this is the same in any contact center, my bathroom breaks might take a little bit longer, right? Because, well, my dog needed my attention, and, well, I just needed another cup of coffee, and my K-cup, I needed to fill that up. And, well, I needed to water my plant real quick. Okay, now I'm coming back onto that's going to happen, I think, in any, whether it's a physical or work from home environment. But I sometimes think that our work from home environment has more distractions. Jumping on our cell phones is a little bit easier at home, right? If no one's watching, AHT might be creeping up, right? Because we're kind of distracted a little bit more. So there are these things that when people are working from home and we're trying to figure out how is it going to have an impact, I love it. I'm a huge champion for work from home, but there are going to be impacts positively and negatively for workforce management teams to consider. I'm curious about you though. Like, what's your perspective? Are you pro work from home from a WFM perspective?
Totally, I agree with you on the pros. I think it provides flexibility to a level that we didn't experience before. In a previous podcast, we spoke about even there are some kind indirect financial implications to the economy, because then you can source talent from smaller regions. People now can live on the countryside and they can still work on big tech companies or whatever companies they want, and that provides a landscape of inclusion to a level that I don't think our current perception is grasping, because I think it will take probably a decade to actually mature, because the implications are endless. I think one of my previous guests, and actually a friend, Adam, mentioned about the New York downtown getting really, really like there are some business struggling a lot because they used to have a lot of influx for customers going in for lunch, and now they don't have the customers. Like the customers are abroad on smaller cities, and now they are moving the economy around, and it's completely floating and changing the landscape. And that's a simple example of something that changed very recently, and we are not even grasping what that means. So I think the benefits are really, really big. I totally agree with you on the pitfalls on AHT. I think definitely the one that concerns me the most is environments that used to be very regulated, where you have credit card transactions or whatever it is, that you now need to figure out ways. So technology needs to enable for people to feel secure, because it's not about, he's going to be prone to fraud. I think it's more about the employees also want to feel secure in their transactions. So I think there is some challenges there, but it's not necessarily negative, because this will disrupt the industry as well. So I think technology will need to evolve to adapt.
It's already there, actually. So I was just seeing a demo last week or 2 weeks ago. It felt a little creepy, but I understand the value, especially in highly regulated environments. And it's a software that sits in the environment, accesses their webcam on their computer, and watches their desktop at all times. So that if I say, for example, my wife comes into my environment, it sees that on the webcam and says, there is a person here that should not be here. This is a secure environment. If I pick up my cell phone, that sets off a huge red flag because webcam can see it, right? So it's this real-time scoring of the security of the physical environment. So if I have a pen and paper, my security score is much lower than somebody that has a completely clean desk. If I'm doing something on screen that includes and interacts with credit cards, it's going to be paying attention to, is he trying to do a little screen cap? Is he grabbing his phone? And it actually has the ability to shut down. It can actually log the person off completely if certain actions and certain thresholds are taken. So the technology is there.
No,
technology
that's
there.
the first to me. I didn't knew we were
Yeah,
that advanced. It's amazing to see, but it's good because it ties perfectly well what I was saying. I think this is going to be some of the challenges that I see, and then the final part specifically to WFM is the only other more negative, and this remote is going to be more at a global environment, is
yeah.
if you are hiring for forecasting or some
Hmm.
kind of a manager to manage your scheduling team. The rules in terms of laws are very so WFM is a very regulated world because you
Yeah.
need to oblige to certain rules, certain
Yes.
like you mentioned about unions, and this
Yeah.
varies a lot between countries, between
Yes.
locations. So the more global your role are and the more remote are, those challenges will become harder. So from a learning curve perspective, this will increase
Mm.
the ability that the professionals need to have to learn more and be prepared to adapt to other countries that might be completely different from where the person is from.
I agree. And I see this as a huge opportunity. This is where AI should be stepping in. There's no reason as to why we need workforce management professionals that understand all these labor laws that vary constantly. That's a waste of mind power. The
Yeah.
platform should understand that. The platform should see, based upon the logistics of where these people are, you can't schedule them that way. And it actually blocks you from like creating rules that are going to break laws. Like I
Mm.
shouldn't be expected to know that. The platform should.
Yeah, it's a good point. And actually, on our Discord community, there was someone asking a question about I don't recall the country, about the breaks and the time between
Yeah,
breaks, etc. And literally, I went to ChatGPT because it's integrated with Discord. We just typed
exactly.
exactly, "Hey, can you tell me?" And give an answer. I was like, "Is this the one you're looking for?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually, it's answered the
That's
question,
perfect.
and it's the perfect picture perfect on
Love that. That's
on
awesome.
that one." So what advice would you go to share with someone that is starting now his career?
Mm,
We spoke about the
yeah,
future, we spoke about the
yeah,
challenges.
yeah,
Like, what would be your advice to someone starting, and kind
yeah.
of what skills you mentioned the skills already, but like
Yeah.
what skills you think are really important to succeed in the field?
My advice to new WFM professionals has stayed pretty consistent over the years. So even with technology changes and kind of the environment changes, it's still been fairly consistent, which is ask a ridiculous amount of questions and get comfortable being the stupidest person in the room. Right. I think so many of us limit our careers because we feel like we have to have the answers, because especially in workforce management, people come to us for the answers. What happened here? Why did it happen? How do we stop it? And so we have built careers as professionals around having the answer. And my advice to new ones is don't fall into that trap.
Mhm.
Don't get comfortable thinking you know everything. As best as you can, get comfortable not knowing everything. If you feel like you know everything, push yourself, go into new environments, keep learning, keep growing. Maybe you got WFM down locked. Go learn about HR. Go learn about marketing. Go learn about your IT resources. Not because you're going to, step into those environments, but because they're influencing your environments. Go learn about your operations team. That way, you have a better, fuller knowledge. So, new professional, ask a ridiculous amount of questions. I actually feel like I know the success of someone's career 5 to 10 years from now, depending upon how comfortable they are asking questions within the first 30 days. I know where they're going and I know how successful they're going to be. If they're like, no, I get it. I'm okay. I don't need any help. I'm like, never mind. You're just,
Yeah.
you're sitting in the behind the scenes for the next 5 years. If you constantly are digging, I know where you're going. So curiosity, that humbleness, right? Like that comfortability of saying
Mhm.
I don't know. Humility, I think, is critical because again, as we know more, as we grow and kind of climb the ladder, our egos want to just naturally inflate. I'm amazing and I know so much stuff, right?
Mhm.
If we can keep curious and keep humble, I think that's going to position us better to continually add value, regardless if you're a coordinator, an analyst, a supervisor, a manager, a VP, wherever you sit in the organization, you'll only continue to grow. I think focusing on those two skills. So that's typically the advice I give to new people coming into the team.
What a great advice. I wanted to give just one more minute to ask back to kind of the original question, like,
Yeah.
where are we going? Where do you think we are going?
The robots are coming. They're going to take all of our jobs. And we need to get curious, empathetic, and kind with each other because it's going to be hard, but we still have jobs. So don't worry. They're coming, but
We
we
just
can
need
still
to
add
adapt.
value.
Yeah, we just need to adapt. Thank you so much, Dan, for joining
Absolutely.
me today. It was great having you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much.